Hi everyone, it's me, Tim. Today I want to talk about enemy AI. And this is to answer a question from Driver3899 who asked, any chance you could talk a little bit about how you approach thinking about enemy AI? Is there a sweet spot between too complex and too simple in terms of behavior? Can you accidentally make enemies too smart for players, or is the performance hit the limiting factor in how complex you can make their behaviors? What are the most important things to keep in mind when designing the enemy AI? Okay, those are all really good questions, and I'm going to try to hit them all, but I'm not going to try to go in order because I want to start with the last one first. And then in the context of answering that, I think I'll hit all the other ones. But I've been doing AI. I trained in AI. That's what my graduate degree was in. I was working on a PhD in it. So I think about AI a lot. And I think in terms of game AI, there's probably 4 important traits that you want to keep in mind that you want in any enemy AI that you're going to code. You want it to be challenging. You want it to be scalable. You want it to be fair. And you want to be computable in the time and space you've got. Now, that last one has changed. 20 or 30 years ago, we'd be examining every single, mathematical thing you were doing. Are you sorting something? Are you multiplying something? During every tick, we would be really drilling down on that. That has relaxed in recent years, but you still don't want to do heavy calculations every single game tick, or that's going to hit your frame rate. So I will talk about all of those, and let's talk about them in order. Let's start with making a challenging AI. What do I mean by that? And that very almost circularly defines as you want enemies that give the player a challenge. You want the player to feel like they're in danger, that this person could actually hurt them, or this creature, or this enemy. You don't want the enemies to be too obviously stupid or robotic, unless they're robots. You don't want them to be overly predictable. If the player knows I can do this thing and they always react this way, that's fun when you're feeling like you can control the combat. But if it's overly predictable, it feels a little too simplistic. Now, like I said, some predictability is good. It makes the player feel smart. It makes the player feel like they have more control. But that's something that should come with abilities they get. If enemies are always predictable, no matter what the player level is or what abilities they have, then it may be too simple of an AI. Probably the most important thing for an enemy AI to feel challenging is they should have some chance to kill the player, especially if the player is not paying attention to them and is leaving them basically unchecked. They should have a chance to kill the player. That's why a lot of designers hate what are called trash mobs, because they can't really hurt you. They just exist to be killed and maybe to drop things or to use your AOIs on or to charge abilities up on. Even trash mobs should be doing a little bit of damage to you or have a chance to do some damage to you, so that over time, even a trash mob could kill you. And enemies should require some skill to kill. And when I say skill, maybe I'm meaning player skill if you're an action RPG, or maybe I'm talking about your player character skill if you're a pure role-playing game and your combat is dependent on the skills of the character the player's made and not the player. But there should be some kind of skill involved in killing the enemies. That makes them challenging. So let's go on to the next one, which is scalable. This isn't computable. I'll get to that. Scalable means as the player advances in the game and gains levels, you would like to use this same AI to keep them challenged. You want to have to rewrite new AI for every single level the player's going to reach. That I do understand that sometimes bosses get their own AI because their bosses tend to be unique, have unique abilities, be on a stage, a level that you've controlled and you've even designed to be an interesting combat for the player to have with this boss. So yeah, they may get their own AI. But I'm just talking about, in general, you don't want to have to go and rewrite AI like, oh, this is the AI we use when the player's level 1. This is the AI we use when he's 5. This is the player level we use when she gets to 10. You just don't want to do that. So what I like to do is think that the AI that you write is versatile enough that you can add a new attack to their attack set, and the AI, that code that you've written, is versatile enough just to take advantage of it. That way you can put in new attacks that have different damage types or do area of effects or are stronger. You can also do attacks that they're smarter at using. Like this is something that they might use when they see the player get to low health, or when they see the player have damaged armor, or when they see the player isn't defending. So this is a great attack to use at that. This would be something that I'd like to think you put into your AI, and all the AIs are using it, and it's not something that just kicks in when they're level 20. Another way to do this, even if you don't want to give them new attacks, is you could just give them new items. If you give them a new weapon, like they go from having a sword to a bow, that they understand this is ranged, and I can attack from a distance, and I can try to stay away from the player and stay in cover. If you give an enemy a really good set of armor, maybe they know they can get right up in the player's face and attack them because they're not going to take as much damage because this armor has a high DR. Or maybe they're using a shield. They suddenly have a shield and they know I can use this to block attacks, and they start doing it. This is all stuff, if your AI is versatile enough, it will suddenly be scalable just because you've given new items to the enemies. Now, it may be that they are suddenly taking advantage of new AI routines. You may have AI routines in there for taking cover or for joining together and doing group attacks. Like an individual enemy won't rush you, but if there's 3 of them, they will. So that one wolf won't attack you, but once there are 3 wolves, they rush you. This could be part of the general AI, and suddenly they're taking advantage of that routine because of the situation. You might even want an AI that's smart enough to lead you into traps. If they are aware of traps in the environment, maybe they like going to the other side of cover. Maybe they move to the other side of that trap, and they want you because they want you to go through it. These are all examples of AI routines that can exist already in your AI, but they won't trigger unless there's cover or traps or other enemy companions, so they can take advantage of those routines. Now, when we're talking about scalability, players don't like it if enemies get too smart, or especially low-level enemies have really, really powerful items. I talked about this. I did a video on level scaling. This is why many players hate level scaling. I don't think they hate level scaling per se. They hate badly done level scaling. Like suddenly these bandits that you used to attack are wearing armor that's worth 20,000 gold, and they're attacking you with plus 10 magic flaming swords. And you're like, this bandit is so wealthy. Why is he doing this? This is why instead you want to switch to another creature type that just makes more sense. And that creature type can take advantage that maybe they have better items or better attacks, and they take advantage of it. You just want to be careful how you scale. And this gets me into fairness, because this is another way that players will judge your AI. Do they think it's being fair? And by that they mean, is it not cheating? And I really mean it's not obviously cheating. This might mean, does the enemy seem to always know where you are? Does the enemy immediately switch to the best attack to use on you, even though they've never attacked you before and have no idea that like fire doesn't hurt you? Maybe you want them to attack a few times, see that fire isn't doing anything, and switch to something else. Now sometimes there's obvious or predictable player behavior that's okay to react to, like a door open. The player opens a door when invisible. Maybe it's okay for an NPC to react to that. But if they don't, often that's the player going, "Oh my goodness, I'm so smart." These are things, and maybe they don't switch attacks. Maybe you're invulnerable to fire, but the fire elemental keeps attacking you and doesn't realize it. It's okay to do that. It feels fair when enemies are dumb. But if they're too smart, if they seem to be taking advantage of information they shouldn't have, that's when players go, this isn't a fair AI. What I like to do is I like to make it obvious that the enemies are following clues. Like if you shoot them, they run to where the gunshot noise originated. So if you shoot and move, they're running to where you shot. If you throw a grenade, they run to where they think the grenade arced from. They think where it originated from. Now, they don't have to calculate this. It could just be when you do an attack that has a noise or an arc or range, it could record the player's last known position, and that's what the AI is using. So until the AI actually sees you, they just are going off your last known position. And then once they see you, you can make last known position the player's position, and then you can always have your AI be running off last known position. That makes it, by the way, easy to calculate, which I'll get to in a second. All I want to say here about fairness is the appearance of fairness is way more important than being fair. Sometimes it's expensive to calculate something, so you can cheat and just have the enemy know it, but wait to do that until there's something where the player could think, oh, they figured out where I must be. If there's only one cover in this entire barren area and the NPC gets shot, there's probably only one place that you can be. So you can always take shortcuts to keep your calculations simple if it doesn't appear like your AI is cheating. And that gets me to the last one, which is you want to be computable in the time and space that you have allotted. You only have so many bytes and so many milliseconds per enemy. That has gotten bigger lately, but it doesn't mean you should do complex sorts and complex calculations every tick, especially on ones that don't change. This is where sometimes what I will do is that once an enemy does a complex calculation, I either put a cooldown on it so they won't do it again for 200, 300, 500 milliseconds, or you mark it as calculated, and until some underlying factor changes and marks it as dirty, they keep using that calculation until the dirty flag gets put on it. Like, they think they know where the player is. Well, if they get there and they see the player's not there, they mark that location as dirty. They need to refigure that out. In many games that I've made, each player is only given a very specific sliver of time to make their calculations. If they need more time, they take additional slivers, additional update calls to do those calculations. That makes the enemy appear to hesitate. In some games, that can be cool. The enemy stops and kind of is looking around. It's playing some kind of fidget because they don't know where you are or they don't know what to do. The attack they want to do requires more calculation. That can be fun. In Arcanum, and I talked about that and I'll link it below, when we did their AI, we only asked enemies within a certain distance to the player what to do. More specifically, every enemy in combat had a heartbeat that ticked every so often. And that heartbeat was proportional to the distance they were from the player. So enemies that were right up in the player and attacking him got very rapid heartbeats. They got a lot more updates to figure out the AI. Ones that were distant got less. Ones that were really far away, maybe not even in the same sector, maybe their heartbeat was suspended altogether. This let us do things in Arcanum because we did not have very fast CPUs in the 90s. This is something you can do. One way that a lot of enemy AIs are simplified is they use predetermined attack plans. So an enemy with a bow may have a pre-baked attack plan. This is what they do. They wait until they're attacked, then they shoot their arrow at the person who's attacking them. They may try to get cover. Maybe that's something they do at a higher level. They may try to use a defend if they have some way of defending. If they run out of arrows, they're switched to attack type 2, which may be a dagger or a sword. But this is all part of an attack plan that's pre-scripted, that's pre-generated for them. This makes them a little more predictable because once you know like they're going to shoot me for a while, when they run out of arrows, they're going to switch to their sword. But again, that may make the player feel smart when he gets them to waste arrows. Maybe they use mirror image or illusion. They get them to waste their arrows. Now, another thing you can do to make things more calculatable is AIs don't really look around for enemies. They don't really hear things. They can make a call and get the player's position immediately. So the idea is, like I said, use what they think the player's last known position is, where the player was standing when they made noise, when they shot, when they threw a grenade, and until the player is within a particular range and has direct line of sight. That's when the last known position and the player's position are the same. An easy way to do this is make NPCs react off taking damage. So if you damage them, you go on their enemy list, and your location when you damage them is the last known position. I talked about this too, where enemies may maintain a list of people who's hurt them and a sum total of what they've done. And then when one enemy has hurt them more than another, maybe beyond a certain threshold, like 20% more, they switch. And when they switch, maybe you put a cooldown. So once I switch targets, I can't switch targets again for another few seconds. These are all things you can do to not only make them look a little smarter or a little more predictable, but also to reduce computations. Once they switch targets, you stop doing retargeting calculations for a few seconds. Sometimes too, you want to put randomness in your calculations. So they don't run to the player, they run near the player. They don't shoot always exactly at the player. They shoot near the player. This can make lower level enemies, they're shooting at you, but they're not hitting you as often. That just makes them seem like they're doing something, and it seems like a smart thing to do, but you're not taking as much damage. And then as they go up a level, the randomness range gets pulled in, and now they start running way closer to where you are, and they start shooting right where you are. Anyway, I hope this answered your question. In summary, you want an AI to be challenging, scalable, fair, and computable. I hope this helps.